Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First item on the agenda today is public hearing bylaw 1306, area structure plan. I call the public meeting number 1306 to order. And the purpose of the bylaw. The purpose of the bylaw 1306 is to enact the Heritage Heights area structure plan for a portion of the southeast half of 2525 west of the 4th meridian within the town of Strathmore. Can we have a confirmation of the notices from the development officer?
Yes, Your Worship. The notice was published in the Strathmore Times on November 15th and November 22nd. Adjacent landowners were notified on October 16th and in a revised letter dated November the 8th.
Agency notification?
Agency notification was also sent on October 16th.
Okay. May we have the development officer's report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject lands are part of the town's annex lands located north of the existing community of Strathaven. This plan encompasses approximately 80 acres located in the south half of section 26, 24, 25 on the north side of Boundary Road, immediately west of Highway 817. The application to adopt this area structure plan was originally submitted in July of 2012. It has gone through several reviews of varying staff, and we are ready to bring this forward. In reviewing the application, the following items were considered: adjacent land uses. The lands in the north half of the section are agricultural lands, and we have a letter from that owner that I'll get to later. Designated agricultural general under the Wheatland County Land Use Bylaw, considered to be urban reserve lands of the town of Strathmore. To the west is a quarter section of land also annexed into the town and still being utilized for agricultural purposes. The lands to the east, on the other side of Highway 817, fall within the Grandview Heights area, Grandview Garden area structure plan. This site has been historically used as crop and pasture, grazing land. There are no gas wells on this site. The town recognizes the requirements of the Calgary Metropolitan Plan, and the Heritage Heights Area Structure Plan proposes an overall density of 8.7 units per gross acre, thereby meeting the density requirements of the Calgary Metropolitan Plan. This development also conforms to the current municipal development plan of the town of Strathmore, as well as many other documents, including the quality of life plan, the community sustainability plan, the wetland conservation plan, and the master servicing strategy. For utilities, this site would be able to gain partial sanitary service through the existing development. It will be based on existing capacity. What has happened in the past with these area structure plans is that they've been submitted historically on a quarter section basis. This is being proposed as half a quarter section, and so that because of certain restrictions in our servicing capability, we've allocated 100 units per quarter section to be allowed to be developed in the first phases through a system of holding tank and off-peak pumping. With this being 80 acres, there would be an ability to do 50 lots in the first phase because it's a half of the quarter section. An open house was held by Longview Planning and Design on behalf of Laterra Ventures and Limar Engineering in Strathmore on June 14th, 2012. As you said, notice of application was sent to the agencies on October 16th. This public hearing was delayed, which is why there was a re-submission of the letters to a notice. Circulation comments came back. Alberta Health Services provided comments, but asked to see the Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments to evaluate any potential environmental and public health concerns related to past or present land use. We have submitted the Phase 1 and Phase 2 to Alberta Health Services. We're confident that their comments, should they have any, will be more properly directed to the subdivision and development and included in development agreement as opposed to the area structure plan. EPCOR responded that the applicant owner will be responsible for all related costs of any modification or additions to existing water and sewer infrastructure. The town of Strathmore Engineering and Operations provided comments, including open space dedication. The issue of a regional pathway was brought up. The regional pathway will be located on the north side of North Boundary Road. For transportation, all roadways will be built to the Town of Strathmore cross-sections and Town of Strathmore City of Calgary design standards. The developer is responsible for a portion of 2 lanes in North Boundary Road as well as a portion of 2 lanes in George Freeman Trail. There is an expectation that the first access from phase 1 would be from not George Freeman Trail, from North Boundary Road. Utilities and servicing. Stormwater drainage plan has to be completed demonstrating capacity in the ponds. No future plan to extend water service north on George Freeman Trail. Connection is to be internal. These will be dealt with at the development agreement phase as development progresses. Alberta Transportation submitted a letter stating that due to the proximity of Highway 817, the area structure plan does not appear to comply with any category of Section 14 of the regulations. Under the subdivision regulations in Alberta Transportation, any area structure plan within a half mile of a provincial highway is to be reviewed by the province and approved or not approved. There was not a traffic impact assessment done for this area structure plan as it was felt to be a little premature. Basically, the department is saying that a TIA must identify any necessary upgrades to effective Highway 1 and 817 intersections, specifically Highway 817 and North Boundary Road, Highway 1 and George Freeman Trail intersection, and Highway 1 and 817 intersection. Therefore, it's anticipated that traffic from all town-approved subdivisions should be included in the analysis. So there will be a requirement for a traffic impact assessment once it gets to a level of before any subdivision or redesignation will be approved, to ensure that the proper traffic counts are established and that the proper improvements are included in either off-site levies or direct charges to the developer. There has been a letter received from the Avramenkos. The letter dated November 19th. They're not objecting to the development, but they are concerned with potential adverse consequences to their property, including blowing dust, topsoils, and debris as a result of the development and ongoing construction. And they've asked for a barrier to be put in place between the 2 properties.
Yes. One comes allowed.
So the analysis is that the Heritage Heights Area Structure Plan is a document that will direct future growth to a new community in Strathmore. Area structure plans are fairly conceptual in nature. Details of, while we need to know what the basic delivery of services will be, ultimately the detailed design is left to development agreement and future functional studies. All processes have been followed in accordance with legislative and regulatory requirements. The affected agencies were circulated. The Engineering and Operations Department, in conjunction with our contract engineering team, ACOM, have received the proposal and have made their comments. The area structure plan is generally in keeping with the municipal development plan and recent changes to it. And in addition to these documents, as we said, we reviewed the application in accordance with the Calgary Regional Partnership and Calgary Metropolitan Plan. And it does meet the density requirements. So the Heritage Heights Area Structure Plan provides residential land uses only. It's the primary use of this area structure plan is for single-family housing on a variety of lot widths with 1 small medium density site. An area of municipal and school reserve has been allocated in the northwest corner of the plan. This allows for the adjacent lands to dedicate municipal and or school reserve in the same area to achieve a parcel size that would be adequate for a middle school, an elementary school, or potentially even a high school, depending on the development of the adjacent lands. So the conclusion that staff have is the area structure plan is a long-range plan. It means the plan is conceptual in nature. The concept of the proposed land uses, serviceability, major connections to the existing infrastructure, and transportation connections to the existing network have been considered. It has met the requirements for the Municipal Government Act, and the recommended action is that if Council has the information they're required to make a decision, that it's recommended that the public hearing be closed. The applicant has a presentation to make, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Do you wish to answer those questions now, or?
Sure, that would, if that suits the chair, absolutely, Mr. Chairman.
Questions? Yes, Councillor Zoll.
Thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. Pat, I'm just looking to see if there's a page there. It's under 8.0 transportation. It's unpaged, but 8.0. Did I hear you correctly that the Phase 1 access would first be from North Boundary rather than George Freeman?
It doesn't. George Freeman. It doesn't come off George Freeman. Unfortunately, I apologize. That's a typo. It's 817 okay. And North Boundary Road where the access would be, and the initial access would be off northbound. Oh, I apologize, George Freeman. Sorry. George
It is
Freeman.
off George Freeman?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and my second question, while I'm still got you, is under analysis. I guess I'm just, and this is probably just the word that's used that gets me a little nervous. But when you say the area structure plan is generally in keeping with the municipal development plan, what is not in compliance?
Through the chair, there's nothing that's not in keeping. This is an annexed quarter section that the existing municipal development plan doesn't address. So generally, the existing municipal development plan addresses residential development, form of residential development, supports single family, supports multifamily, but it really doesn't give any further direction, particularly for this quarter, because it is a recently annexed quarter, and so it's not even included in the mapping.
Thank you.
Your Worship, just a question to Pat. You talked about Vic and Teresa having some concerns about the blowing dust and stuff like that. Is that something that could be developed in the subdivision stage you'll be handling with the developer?
Absolutely. Through our stripping and grading permit, there are regulations and requirements for control. Through construction management plans, there's also a means to control that. We haven't addressed a boundary or barrier, but there are definitely ways of controlling blowing waste and dust and topsoil.
I have a couple if you don't mind taking that. Oh, sorry. I have a couple of questions quickly. In regards to the adjacent landowner, has contact been made with them to give them any sort of comfort in regards to the steps that will be taken to reduce any concerns for the dust and the...
I believe that they contacted staff this week to find out if they should be present or if their letter would be presented to council or read into the minutes. I don't believe they've been given any assurances. I think if they wanted to talk to staff, we could definitely explain to them how it's dealt with through stripping and grading permit. I'm not sure that information was transmitted to them prior to tonight.
Okay. Is there specific procedures that the developer must take in regards to maintaining, keeping the dust under control?
Under the stripping and grading permit, there are definitely regulations. There can also be other requirements put in a development agreement, whether it be to under construction to water the roads, to keep dust down, to make sure that any stockpiles of soil are treated so that they don't blow. So it's handled through development agreement, through the stripping and grading permit, and through construction.
And they also indicate that they've asked for some type of a barrier. We don't know exactly what they mean by that.
No, and we haven't addressed that point. And certainly, if there was to be a barrier, I'm not quite sure what it would be. It's not something that the town normally does between quarter sections that are being developed. However, if it's a matter of controlling blowing material, there could be. I hesitate to even say because I'm not sure. I mean, there could be maybe some temporary snow fencing type of thing put up while the construction's being done, but a barrier. I'm sure that the subdivision in and of itself, when it's developed, will have fencing of individual lots, which will form its own barrier.
Yes, sir.
Oh, no, if you're done.
Oh, another question that I would like to ask is in regards to the TIA. The traffic impact analysis. It hasn't been completed, but it will be completed, and assuming that everything's okay, we don't have a problem. But if there is a concern in regards to high traffic flow, what happens in regards to this area structure plan?
We do. I mean, we have a general idea of the traffic based on the number of units proposed. The traffic impact assessment will look at it more in terms of assumptions as to exactly where that traffic's going to go, what roads it will use to get to Heritage Heights. It will look at peak volumes and turning movements. When the traffic impact assessment is done and completed, the engineering department and AECOM will review that, and it might make specific recommendations about, for example, including a turning lane or increasing a deceleration lane. Those would be the types of things that would be generally added. The requirement for the major collector and arterial roads will not change because they've already assumed that this is all going to develop as residential.
Okay. One further question that I would like to pursue is under 7.0. It talks about open space, and it says near the end of that paragraph, the pathway on George Freeman Trail should be required as part of Phase 1. The terminology in regards to should means to me that quite possibly the developer doesn't have to do.
This is a direct quote from our engineering and operations department, Mr. Chairman, and I believe that when it came down to when we get the development agreement, when we get to subdivision, the regional pathway will be determined. I think one of the issues that might be coming up here is a reassessment of the future full build-out of North Boundary Road and how much road widening is needed and whether it can be taken as pathway. So I believe that that's why the should statement is in there, because we're still trying to determine the future road widths required.
Will it cause the town problems? Should the developer be a little reluctant to do the pathways? Or are they almost obligated to do the pathways?
Regional path is something that the town has made developers, made it an obligation to provide. So it's the specific location that I think is under discussion right now.
Thank you. Councillor Fuel?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I just had a quick question. I'm looking at your map on figure 3.2, and I see that Heritage Heights is part of that upper development area. Do you know, can you just fill me in on the timeline of when we might be looking at this? The start?
Through the chair, that might be something you want to ask the applicant's representative. I don't really have an idea on the time.
Okay, I guess I was just coming to the idea of the major sanitary trunk line that needs to be constructed. Is that something that we do as a town, or is that the developer?
That will be something that will be handled by the town through off-site levies, will be handled through the town through a collection of other rates and fees.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions? Okay, we're going to have the developer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Sorry, my presentation wasn't out. Just 2 shakes. Mr. Chairman, good evening. My name is Christy Bunder. I'm a planning consultant. It's actually lovely for me to be with Pat. She's known me since I was probably 23, 45 now. She's been a friend and a mentor. We fight like sisters, but we kiss and make up all the time. It's nice. It's lovely for me to just be here with her. I also would like to introduce the development team to you. I have with me this evening John Laboon and Mariano Serpico from Laterra Ventures. And I have Jay Sheen from MP Engineering and Neil Coulter, who is just an overall project manager at the Kendrick Group. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to give you a brief presentation about the area structure plan, and I think I'll answer some of your questions as I go. The objectives of an area structure plan are really to provide, and as Ms. Maloney mentioned, clear and concise policy direction on a plan area. The next steps are land use rezoning and subdivision, and often when we do area structure plans like this, we at least put a companion to them in terms of the land use rezoning, at least the first phase. In this case, as to the timing question of Councillor Fuel, we haven't put a land use rezoning in front of you for phase 1. We've just put the area structure plan in front of you. And that's because there's a lot of starts going on in Strathmore right now, a lot of active projects, and the absorption rates in Strathmore aren't that high yet. So you probably see absorption of 27, 45 new lots a year, and we couldn't bring this on and be competitive in the market today. But we're putting the pieces in place so that when the timing is right, we can do so. And that will require another public hearing, by the way. We also, with this area structure plan, are providing a policy background from which to evaluate the development, which describes and analyzes the characteristics of the use and the site around it. We've established design principles which are in conformity with the existing statutory plans. So you have a whole layer of statutory plans in the town of Strathmore that we're compliant with. And we established a servicing plan, and that also goes to the sanitary trunk line and who's paying for it and where it goes. Now you at least know what's going to come in this area and what you have to accommodate for in the future. There's a detailed vision in the area structure plan that I won't detail with you tonight, but part of the reason that we call it Heritage Heights is we wanted to give it some distinguishing character. You're seeing a lot of neighborhoods in the town that have at least a distinguishing characteristic, and that's really hard to do on a bare quarter section that has really no proximity and no real features and no real form makers like organically. There's no big rock like in Okotoks, and there's no former water reservoir. There's not a lot going for it in terms of giving an identity. So what we wanted to do in terms of identity is provide at least some kind of heritage notion to it because of its proximity to Strathaven, and there's some strong connections to Brent Boulevard through that area, and our connection to Strathaven is strong in terms of the past development team and everything else. We wanted to call it Heritage Heights. And we wanted to build on the legacy that the town has with the rail, with CP Rail, and utilize in the architectural controls some method of architectural design and street furniture even that have a railway theme. And railway theme in most cases in urban design is wrought iron benches and wrought iron street lamps and interesting characteristics in the front porch. And we have a lot of front porch here because we have a lot of laneway. So that's where that's why we went with Heritage Heights, and that's what we're hoping to establish here. And we hope it kind of carries on from this 80 to the next 80 and around it. Really important to have a character and a sense of place regardless of what you're doing. It's important to the town. Integrated and walkable is also important, and a range of housing types. So entry-level housing all the way to the higher ends of housing. The Heritage Heights area structure plan is located on the north side of town, directly north to Strathaven. And as I've mentioned, we have a lot of full compliance with all of the municipal documents, including the wetland strategy, the conservation plan, the MDP, the land use bylaw, and the list goes on. One thing you may not notice about Heritage Heights is it's actually sitting in titles that are 240 acres. It's not a full 80. And the interesting thing about the 40-acre split is it's even, but it doesn't line up with the roads at Strathaven. So this street that is the connection to Strathaven was actually offset from the middle of the quarter section that included Strathaven and now the ones to the north. So we have an offset intersection in theory, and not in practice. It'll look exactly even, but it doesn't follow the middle of the quarter line, and it doesn't match up with each 40. So just in case that was a curious observation that somebody made. That's 240s on a straight even split, but the actual axis is just offset slightly, and we've accommodated for that in our phasing. In terms of the design and the land use strategy, we have primarily residential, in fact all residential, but various types. And we have, with the low density mixed dwelling type, which is orange, the opportunity in the area structure plan to do a number of different housing types under that category. So what we didn't do is we didn't go into this and say, this is R1, this is R2, this is R3. We said, this is residential, and as the plan evolves, we will choose the housing types that make the most sense in order to meet the density targets. So we have 8.7 UPA density target here. If we do all single family detached, we aren't going to make that. So we have to be careful in our choices of housing over time, and the town works with us on implementing those densities so that we meet those objectives. We aren't as specific about it in an area structure plan because if the land use bylaw changes, then we have to start over. There is also a mid-density multifamily site right across from the connection at Strathaven, and that would be probably a 4-story stick maximum if it were developed to the densities projected in this plan. We have in this plan, we're cul-de-sac averse. I'm really even disappointed that we have one But we have one cul-de-sac and a lot of linear road systems. And one of the things that we like about a linear or grid-like connection is it's very easy to connect to. And it's very easy for wayfinding. If you've ever been to Tuscany and been lost, you're with a big group of folks because nobody can find their way around in a big circle, especially Copperfield. I get lost in Copperfield, and I do this for a living. So we like to have grid-like subdivisions so that they're easy for people to find where they're going. They're much safer because you're not sure that someone's going to come around the corner and smack you. There's great intersections, good sight distance, and the best thing about it is it provides for flexibility in the blocks. So you can go and say, I think that that block actually works better as a multifamily or a villa, and it can change it easily. The grids allow for that, and that's really a bonus, and that's why we tend to go away from the cul-de-sacs. With this, we also have a lot of laneways, and I think Council may note that we have laneways through and through. And one of the more important ones is along the major collectors, because we don't want to have a proliferation of accesses along the major collectors. So we don't want people coming in, turning into their front car drives off a major. So we've got all of these laneways for that exact reason. They have to go around to their lane and park in their garage, which will be in the back of their home. We also like street frontages and street themes. If you've ever been to Mahogany, street themes are very important there, and you get a sense of place from those. Front porches, pathways that are sidewalks with planting and landscaping. Areas of interest. It's not which two-car garage do you live in, it's which house do you live in, which community do you belong to. That's our goal as a planning firm, and those are the developers that we like to work with. We've also talked a little bit about pathway connection, and as you can see, we've got a lot of little green strips, particularly adjacent to North Boundary Road, where we've left a large dedication, which, again, we've just given it to you. It's not MR, it has no programmed uses, it's just a road dedication, and you can do with it what you need to. But we've made for future connections for pathway to that North Boundary Road along these green strips. These green strips also connect to our open spaces that contain the stormwater ponds, as well as to the municipal reserve sites. And we also have one going north as well, so that those connections can occur. And that goes a long way for pedestrian permeability. So pedestrian permeability means you have options. You can walk places with ease, and that pathways help with that. As Ms. Maloney mentioned, there is a municipal reserve dedication in this corner, and the objective of the town is to try to what we call conglomerate municipal reserve. So take reserves owing from other quarter sections as they develop and put them adjacent to that, so that you can have a larger municipal reserve site over time. And the goal of that would be to provide a sufficient school site. High school sites are usually 20 acres, 13 to 20 acres in size is what you need for them. And that's hard to do when you have a 10% MR requirement. And what we've tried to do is be strategic, working with the staff on where that's located so that you can make the most of it. The ponds too are interesting. We always note those as blue. We always say, well, that's storm pond, it's going to be blue. It's not going to be full of water 365 days a year, but we show it that way so that the perception is it has a function. It's not just straight up green space. It actually has a function, and in the town of Strathmore, there's a large stormwater withholding requirement, and that's why there's 2 ponds here. This is fully serviced. We've made accommodations for that with connections to utility connections to both the south and to the future Grandview Gardens area, and our water tie-in would be the same place. We also have major intersections shared with Grandview Gardens along George Freeman, and as I've mentioned, we're sharing the access location with Strathhaven, and so you have a very specific and timed locations of intersections all along these majors, again, precluding the incidence of traffic accidents over time. We also have a major that's running through this 80-acre parcel. We curve these on purpose so they don't become racetracks. We do that on purpose. This slows people down. And because this is a major, it's intentionally curved. This one's a collector on the north side, so there's not as much speed implied here. But this one, people could get carried away on. So we just do that to slow folks down. And again, fully serviceable within the master servicing strategy. As Ms. Maloney had mentioned, there's some interim servicing capacity available to it. In terms of phasing, we actually are doing this over time and by phase, and there's reasons for that, again, with market absorption and making sense of of your application from a land use perspective, rationalizing the zones you use and bringing the density on that you need at any given time. A lot of that is market driven, but a lot of it also depends on the availability of servicing. So if we were to start, we would start here over on George Freeman with a connection to George Freeman Trail, using that shared access to the Groundview Gardens. And we wouldn't be doing a lot of construction against the shared property line with the Abraminkos until the third phase. And one of the questions with regard to phasing that I saw in the staff report was, and maybe, I don't know if council noticed it or not, but they were talking about reorganizing this phase boundary so that it includes or excludes this. But in actual fact, this is just one lot. So I traced down here a lot in Strathaven of equivalent size, and if you put it up there, you can see it's actually just one lot, and it would gain access right here off the side road. We don't want it to have access off the major, so intentionally we included it in this phase so that it actually has to be driven in an east-west direction, not a north-south. I'll just speak as well, since we're on this map, to the Abraminko letter. We've spoken with Abraminkos several times, of course, because our initial conversation was, do you want to be part of the area structure plan? And they didn't, and that's fine. And they hadn't mentioned this issue to us either until we saw the letter on the 19th, and I don't recall them at our open house. But what we do when we do development is every time we do a phase, we are required to do a development agreement which includes a construction management plan. And construction management plans talk a lot about site debris containment, notice of signs who your site manager is, ways and means of mediating your concerns, as well as water truck application daily and regularly to reduce dust. And you can actually get a really good sense of this if you drive by a subdivision under development against a highway. So if you were driving into the city one day and there's some stuff under construction, you can see how very careful they are about debris retainment, and they can't have smoke or dust or anything like flying off the site. You're very much required to have the impact of your development on your development site. I can assure you that we will talk to the Abraminkos again and ensure that their concerns are met. We've had a good working relationship with them. I see no reason why that can't continue. With regard to transportation, it's not like we haven't done anything. We actually did a high-level trip generation and traffic operations summary. This was done in January of 2012. And it concluded that the capacity analysis of the opening day condition, so that's phase one, would have no detrimental impact or much of a detriment on the existing road network intersection configurations with the traffic controls as they are today. What happens after that, though, is of importance, because then you start to bring more of your development on over time, and what the traffic impact assessments look at is the 20-year time horizon and how your development affects that. So with the traffic impact assessment, we will assess all of the roads contiguous to the site, including our through road, and George Freeman, North Boundary, and Highway 817. The letter from Alberta Transportation, to me, slightly cheeky, because they're saying do a traffic impact assessment that talks about everything going on in the town all at once. And that's a little bit difficult because you don't know the timing of other developments, so you don't know how they're going to impact you in general. They're also, the only thing that gives them their request is our proximity to Highway 817, which is here. It's 800-meter proximity, but the subdivision regulations are very clear that that's a waiver required at the subdivision stage, and what we're offering is to do this traffic impact assessment at the land use stage, because we're also very much aware of other developments in this area that are required to do the same thing. So we're all sort of teaming up, we're all using the same consultants, and we're all trying to do right by Alberta Transportation, but it's difficult to do it at the area structural plan stage, particularly if you're not bringing land use on. And I think that's been consistently applied through town. In terms of public consultation, we had an open house in June of 2012. 15 people attended that open house. We had one-on-one discussions with folks because there were so few of them that attended, and we received one feedback sheet. And the feedback on this application was generally positive, and people really liked the fact that the pathway was on the other side of North Boundary because it gave them a little bit more of a buffer to new development, and they wanted the opportunity to use the pathway. which was nice for us to hear. And the one feedback form that we did receive talked about ensuring that there was bicycle and pedestrian pathway connectivity, and we have done that with our pathway strategy. As Ms. Maloney said, the pathways, as we understand the regional pathway system today, it's on the north side of North Boundary, which is the south of all of this site, and then we understood it to go on the east side of George Freeman through the prairies and Grandview Gardens. And as I understand from engineering, that may be revised, and that's not a problem for us. That we can accommodate those things, and we usually do them at the land use stage. And if we don't build it, we don't get our approvals. So we're behooved to do these things. Just in conclusion, this is just another step forward in Strathmore's future, and I've been fortunate to be involved in a lot of that. And it's another part of the puzzle that gets filled when you do a comprehensive annexation. So what's been presented now resolves that picture for growth. It's much more comprehensive now because you have these in place, and it's genuinely positive. It's intended to be positive for the town, with lots of land use options and a good balance as you start to grow. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other persons wishing to be heard in favor of the application? And are there any persons wishing to be heard in opposition of the application?
I'd like to speak, Your Worship. My name is Vic Arabanko. I'm the landowner north
Please have a chair.
of the development. I'm not in opposition of the development. I would just like the concerns outlined in the letter addressed with regard to the soil movement. As most are aware, the soil in this area is quite sandy, and if it's exposed with the winds that come up, it can create quite a mess. Since annexation, the garbage problem, there are a number of town residents who feel that George Freeman Trail is a land transfer or a waste transfer site for landscaping materials, building materials, and household waste. And you can check with your bylaw department because I'm sure they have us almost on speed dial because we phone once or twice a week to let them know that people have dropped off more stuff again. And so making sure that during the construction phase and so on that the garbage isn't getting all over the place. The town currently hauls snow up to that quarter or that 40 acres where the development is proposed, and in the spring the garbage that's in the snow removal blows all over the place too. Okay. The other barrier that we referred to in our letter is some type of fencing on a permanent basis, and hopefully not a wooden fence that becomes an eyesore over time. This last year we had a number of people who from town would wander, walk out, which is fine, but they'd walk through cropland after seeding and so on. And my wife had a little episode with a fellow who brought out a couple of big dogs, and she politely asked him to get off the crop, and he tried to inform her that he was walking on grass, which was barley. And so when you put people closer to the agricultural sector, then you get these problems. And so having some type of barrier so that the residents don't become an issue also. So the development, I am not against the development in one way or another. I endorse Strathmore growing and so on, but we have to do it in such a way that respects the rights of everybody around them too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Does council have any further questions To the development officer. Does the development officer have any closing statements?
No, thank you. Mr.
No?
Chairman.
Does the applicant have any statements in rebuttal?
I really, because Dr. Abernico's concerns are legitimate, but they're not area structure plan issues, they're land use issues. And we do have to go through another public hearing at the land use stage. And we will take the time between now and whenever we decide that we're gonna stick the shovel in the ground, tell Dr. Abernico further. And meet his concerns. His land is also in the urban boundary, but it has to be perceived as private property until it isn't. And what we have done in the past is we put K-rail at the ends of roads, like concrete K-rail. We put private property signs everywhere where there's pedestrian connections in the future, because as you notice, there are a few connections to the north. We don't want to strand that land either. And we work on education when the site is built. During the construction, however, garbage and debris flowing around and dust and dirt and noise are not acceptable. And every contractor knows this, and there's construction management plans they have to abide by. And those are always detailed at the land use stage as part of the development. And I don't know if, whatever you want to add?
Up to you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Does council feel they have all the information required to make an informed decision on the bylaw?
Move the public hearing be closed, Your Worship.
Any discussion? All in favor? The public hearing is closed. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is any additions or deletions to our agenda.
Your Worship, I have two. 8.4 RCMP Traffic Initiative and 8.5 2015 Alberta 55 Plus Summer Games. I'll repeat the last. 8.5 2015 Alberta 55 Plus Summer Games. And that's all we have, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Then would somebody please move adoption of the amended agenda?
So moved.
All in favor? Previous minutes, adoption of the minutes of November the 6th regular council meeting. Do we have any questions in regards to that?
Your Worship, I'd move that council adopt the November 6, 2013 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Do we have any comments in regards to the minutes for November the 6th? Yes, Councillor.
Your Worship, I have a correction I'd like to make on page 5 under the Woodemza report. It's stated the Alberta Health Services has accepted Woodemza's 2-year proposal. In fact, it's a 5-year proposal with two-year extensions.
2-year extensions, okay. You have those amendments? Does anybody have any comments in regards to the amended minutes? May I have a motion, please?
Also move that.
Yeah, motion to move the amended minutes.
Councilor Sullivan, didn't you? Did you not?
I move the motion of the minutes with amendment. With
Thank-
minutes with amendment.
Thank you. Comments? All in favor? Are there any delegations this evening? No? Bylaw 1306, Area Structure Plan. And this is the second reading? Is this what that's?
That's fine.
I move that council give second reading to bylaw 13-06.
Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? Are we in a position this evening to read, give third and final reading? Okay, may I have a motion for third and final reading?
Your
please?
worship, I would move that we give third and final reading to bylaw number 13-06.
Any comments, questions? No? All in favor? Bylaw 13-19 Downtown Design Review Committee. Do we have somebody to present that to us? And that's on page 61.
Thank you. Through the chair. This is an administrative bylaw. The background of this bylaw is that the Downtown Overlay District bylaw was adopted on September 18, 2013. The states in section 2F that a downtown design review committee will, will review applications and provide recommendations as determined by the approving authority. The approving authority will consider these recommendations when considering the approval of the application and the application conditions to the development permit. This bylaw is to then create the design review committee, which will be a committee of council appointed by council and make recommendation to staff and council on all developments and redevelopments in the downtown. The bylaw outlines the membership and the objects of the committee. The objects being to review proposed developments regarding external materials, design features, the mix of land uses, site landscaping, public art, streetscaping, including street furniture, density bonusing, signage including awnings and wayfinding, parking reductions, height structures, and pedestrian access points. We have in the downtown overlay a significant amount of variance on existing land use district to do everything we can to enhance and encourage the downtown. I realize that in this bylaw we have the proposed themes for the downtown, and I understand the second theme has been discussed, and we are more than willing to look at another term for this, and I understand that might even have been His Worship that suggested the possibility of eclectic vibrancy, which I believe fits still what we are trying to do, and we would be very happy to make that amendment to this bylaw as well, because it still expresses what we're trying to achieve. The composition of the committee that we're recommending would be 2 members of Strathmore Town Council, 3 members of staff, 1 member of the Strathmore Regional Arts Collective, and 3 members from the town at large. This would be advertised as a volunteer board. People would submit, the staff would bring recommendations, the board would appoint, and this committee would then review all development applications in the downtown. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. As an administrative bylaw, if you believe you have enough information, you can give 3 readings tonight, at which point staff would then advertise for membership.
Councillor Buckland.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Pat. On your list of, on 101 there on your list of objects, would directional traffic and parking be included in that, or does that fall somewhere else?
H includes parking. Directional traffic, that would not be part of the design review committee. That would really be town engineering and operations.
Parking reductions as in angle compared to parallel? Or?
As in actual numbers, with agreements to share parking with other uses or businesses, to switch angle 90 degree to angle. This will also include the concept of putting the island parks that might take up a few parking spaces. So all of that would be included in this.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Just one quick question, if I may. You were talking about the island parks. They're going to be off the sidewalks.
That's correct.
Oh.
The concept that we have, I'm really sorry I didn't bring
that's
that presentation with me. It's basically a temporary platform that is constructed that would be about curb height, that would take up anywhere from 1 to 3 parking spaces, that would have seating and planting, and be there for the summer season, but then be able to be removed in the winter when we needed to snowplow.
And when those parks are in place, what type of parking is recommended for vehicular traffic?
That would reduce the street parking spots by whatever I said, 1 to 3, depending on the size. We're not recommending actually alternative parking for that. What we are looking at is more of a comprehensive review of parking for the downtown, so that, for example, we're really trying to encourage employers of downtown businesses to encourage their employees not to park in front of the building or in some of the prime parking spots. So we're looking at creating maybe staff parking on other sites to encourage those parking spaces to be left open for customers. For example, there might be a development that is proposed for a restaurant that would require many more parking spaces, but it's adjacent to a church site. So parking sharing is something that we're definitely looking at. There's also the option to take a cash in lieu for parking stalls, so that the town could be in a position to potentially buy, build, or develop an additional municipal parking lot of some kind.
Okay. And further to that, with the island parks, is it better to have angle parking or parallel parking? And if you're not prepared to answer that tonight, that's fine. You can do
Mr.
some
Chairman,
research.
I don't think I am quite prepared to answer that, because we haven't actually designed the parks yet,
Okay.
the pocket parks or the island parks. There's an opportunity that they could be designed quite easily to fit in the angle parking.
Okay.
But we have not designed them as yet.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? May I have a motion for
I move first reading of bylaw 13-19, please.
any discussion?
It's dash 17, I believe.
Yeah, oh, yes, you're right. It's 13-19.
It's third.
19?
Well,
Oh, I'm
just a
looking
minute
here.
here. I think it is 19.
It says here 17.
Oh, it should be on your,
Oh, yeah, here it says different. It's both are here.
yeah, it should be 13-19. At the top it says 17.
Oh, it does too. Sorry, it is 19.
Okay, we've heard a motion for first reading of 13. No questions? All in favor? Second reading?
Your Worship, I would move that council provide second reading to bylaw number 13-19.
Discussion? All in favor? Do we do third reading immediately?
Your Worship, I would move third reading of bylaw number 13-19.
Your Worship, I'm sorry.
No?
You need unanimous consent for a third reading.
Did we have somebody who said no?
Yes, yeah.
Oh. Unanimous consent on second reading?
Third reading.
On
On third reading, okay. Third reading, we need unanimous consent for third reading. Do we ask for unanimous consent for third reading?
Sorry.
Do we have unanimous consent for third reading? All in favor? Now we can do the motion for third reading? Thank you.
I would move third reading of bylaw number 13-19.
All in favor? Carried. Old business, 7.1, Bill C-28. That was an item that was carried over from last council meeting. And Bill C-28 is a change that's being made to the Municipal Government Act, and it's something that impacts municipalities. And there was a task force, and they have met with the Minister Griffiths in regards to this. And Bill C-28, from the initial way it was presented, has been changed dramatically and will be resubmitted to the legislature for approval. The main concern, I'll say that I had, and there was a number of other people that had in regards to the Bill C-28, is if you were in violation of part of that act, the chief elected officer could indeed be jailed. No, some of us had a concern in regards to that. That has since been taken out, and the municipality, if there was a violation in regards to that, would be subject to a fine. There was a meeting today with Minister Griffiths and the municipalities around the province that were involved. It was a very positive meeting, and the task force, which included the Calgary Regional Partnership, which Strathmore is part of, were involved in that, and all of the information that I'm receiving, the people on that task force are in favor of the bill that is being presented, or will likely be presented, because we have not seen the bill, so we don't know exactly what will be presented. But what will likely be presented in the legislature will be a bill that municipal government will be in favor. I also submitted to each of the councillors the information from the task force in regards to the outcomes. And at this point now, I will ask whether or not any of the councillors have any questions in regards to C-28. And I won't make any guarantees that I can answer them. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
I have many questions, Your Worship, but
Okay.
I'll just start with my main concern. Did Minister Griffith talk about how this would be represented in the legislature, or how it would be represented in the legislature with regards to, would it receive amendments? Would it be put forward in the legislature as an amended bill or a new bill?
They're changing the title on it, and I can't...
That's what I heard.
Yes, they're changing the title on it, and I'm just trying to recall whether or not Minister Griffith said that it was being amended or it was being submitted as a new bill.
The reason I ask this, Your Worship, is because if it's being submitted as a different bill, then there is opportunity for community, municipalities, and others to respond to it. If it's being presented as final reading in the legislature, it's a different issue. But clearly that's something we need to find out.
Yeah. And I can check that out tomorrow when I talk with one of the other people on the task force, and I will provide you that information at my first opportunity.
And thank you, Your Worship. And in your notes to Council, you noted that participants cannot leave without a valid reason. Was there any elaboration on what would constitute a valid reason?
That was under the old bill, and it has to do with growth management boards. And as best I know, we are not in a growth management board. We are only in a partnership with Okotoks, Nanton, those, and Chestermere, Cochrane, Banff. There's a number of people that are in this, and we have a partnership in regards to how we want to do our planning for our growth. But we have not set up a growth management board. And that growth management board will be voluntary, and you will set up your bylaws as if it was a commission. You will set up your bylaws so that if one party wants to leave that growth management board, there will be a procedure for them to leave. And it will be the board that sets that up. It will not be the minister. That's the way I understood it.
My understanding was different. My understanding was that the bylaws would direct that process.
The bylaws will direct that process, but the bylaws will be set up by the growth management board.
Okay. That wasn't my understanding.
Yeah. And I think that's changed
since then. It would be
since then.
directed, okay. The other question I had, Your Worship, was that it said that they would enable the board to elect a chair and hire an auditor. I noted that there was an absence then of how persons to a growth management board would be appointed or elected. So I'm assuming that that process of appointment will still be carried out by the province, that they are still retaining that option?
I don't think In regards to the auditor and appointing people, I think that has been taken totally out of, and I'll backtrack in regards to the auditor. But in regards to appointing people to the boards, I think that has been totally taken out to the growth management boards. That no longer exists in the new legislation that's going to be presented. That's the way I understood that.
Those are all my questions. Thank you, Your
Okay.
Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. Thank you. New business, 8.1, Winter Street Maintenance Policy Discussion. Who is presenting? Nobody? Should we?
Your Worship. If I could speak on that.
Councillor Blokeman, please.
I respect the fact Jesse's not here tonight, but I thought we should discuss it tonight. There's another snowstorm coming in next week. I am basically speaking on behalf of quite a few business people downtown. And the general discussions we're having is we are asking for changes. Keep in mind, we all recognize that the town staff does an excellent job both downtown and in the rest of the town. We're not upset with that at all. We're definitely not trying to jump the queue on the priority list. However, we have a continual problem downtown with quite a few business owners concerned. Basically, the snowstorm we had 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago, I guess, the downtown was basically crippled for 3 days. Running a grader through to open up the driving lanes is essential. Pushing snow to create a windrow on either side of the street is unacceptable. The windrow we had on that particular Saturday, Sunday, and all day Monday was at least 4 feet high, and it ran about 7 feet out into the street. The angle parking, the people were still angle parking. Your driving lanes were not even 2 full lanes open, they were down to about 1. It's not working. Refusal to put the windrow in the middle of the street is apparently unacceptable. As I said, after that last snowstorm, the businesses on the north side of 2nd Avenue were crippled. I did not check 3rd and 4th Avenue. Accesses cut into these windrows, which they did Monday afternoon. They were punching a few holes in here and there. That worked for about 3 minutes until people started putting their vehicles in there, and then that defeated that purpose. These windrows are dangerous for people. Obviously, everybody knows I have a business downtown, so I see lots of stuff 6 days a week. A lot of seniors are trying to hop over these banks. They get out of their vehicles. You pretty well have to go out there and help them, and it's. I did myself try and punch a few tunnels into these windrows so they could at least walk through them, but somebody is going to get hurt out there. The business owners that I talked with, this snowstorm conveniently happened on a Saturday. We didn't expect it to be cleaned up Sunday, but we actually thought, and I thought myself too, because I purposely parked in Kinsman Park Monday morning at 5 o'clock. I fully expected snow removal Monday morning at 5:30 instead of Monday night at 7 p.m. That basically crippled the businesses up for one more business day. Basically, what we're asking for on behalf of the business owners downtown is, never mind pushing it to the left side or to the north side or the south side, get in there and remove the snow as soon as you're in there and get rid of the snow. All these other ways of doing things, they are not working. And so we're kind of asking for changes. We can wait till Jesse's here, but we are asking us, on behalf of the downtown business people, we are asking for changes to the snow removal policy.
Do you have any other comments?
Your Worship, if I might, with regards to the same matter of Winter Street maintenance, a small number of residents from Thomas Drive said that through the windrows, their access to the pathways on Thomas Drive are blocked, and they respectfully requested that some holes could be punched through those so that they would have access to the pathways. And I said that I would bring it here on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Sol.
Councillor Rempel?
Thank you, Your Worship. During the last election campaign, I was doing my door-to-door stuff. There were a few questions that I tried to ask the people. Snow removal was one of them on residential streets. And it was mentioned, and I wish I would have made note of how many times people told me. I thought I would remember, but it just, there were just so many of the times that it was mentioned that they didn't agree with the hours that the snow removal is taking place. It's not so much when they finish, but it's when they start in the morning. People with smaller, younger families, and we have a lot of younger families in this town, that may not have a garage or a back alley to park their vehicle in, and don't have a garage in the front, no driveway, are obligated to move their vehicles off the street by 8 a.m. that morning. By 8:30, they have to go and get that vehicle again to drive children to school or maybe go to work. And this scenario was brought up numerous times, is what do you expect me to do? Dress my kids, take them with me into the cold car while I'm moving it away around the block? Or do I leave them by themselves in a house? And between 8 and 9 in the morning is a very busy time in most households. So what has been suggested numerous times was to at least delay it till 9 o'clock. 8:30 was mentioned by some of them, because by 8:30 they usually are on their way, especially if they have kids that they're dropping off at school or at the babysitters or whatever. And that way they don't have to, they can't park their car around the corner on another street the night before, because on a cold night they have to be able to plug it in somewhere. And so that's not feasible. And it's very inconvenient for them to have to do it by 8 o'clock in the morning, and chances are, and it probably doesn't happen, that the snow plows don't show up before 9 anyway. And they're going through a bunch of, they get stressed out over it for no reason, really. So I would propose that we change the hours of enforcement instead of 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, so that these people can go about their morning duties and preparations for the day without having to worry about their vehicle being ticketed or towed. So that would be my recommendation.
Any other comments from anyone? Go ahead. Well,
It's really hard trying to decide, what hours to do and all. For those who are not familiar, we have the grader. Okay, we start work right at 9 o'clock and we go to 3. We can't start the graders and so on beforehand, because last year or the year before we got a lot of flack over it because there was kids walking to school and near the graders and all. So anyway, this year we start at 9 o'clock, go to 3. We don't go after 3 because there's school kids again. And the operators work right through their lunch hour, so those 6 hours they go straight. I'd have no concern if we moved it from 8 to 8:30. If you get much later in that, the peace officers only have so much time to get out and get the vehicles moved or ticketed or whatever's going to happen. So I think it'd be better if we did change it from 8. 8 is difficult.
Councillor Sobel?
Well, I'll, if you don't mind, Your Worship, I'll let
Okay.
Councillor Rempel finish
Councillor
on it
Rempel?
because I've got a different question.
Thank you. The other concern that I personally have is seeing as we don't have RCMP to do any of the school patrols, and with on snow removal days, and this is an ongoing thing now with snow removal, our peace officer and our bylaw officers are all tied up in the snow removal areas to try and either get these vehicles out of there or ticketing them. And it leaves our school zones without anybody patrolling them. And believe you me, these kids, they know when there's nobody patrolling the school zones. And I think it becomes a safety issue that needs to be addressed, not only with our peace officers, but we also need our RCMP to step up and do some patrolling in the school zones.
Councillor Sobel?
Well, just a comment on that. I may have a solution to that issue, Councillor Rempel, a little later. But back to Winter Street maintenance. My question to the CAO, Your Worship, through the chair, is in regards to the 5th priority or 5th level of priority in the snow cleaning policy, which relates to other streets or lanes where snowfall significantly impedes traffic flow. So I'm presuming on a fairly decent snowfall that most roads will at least have had one plow go through them at one point after the snowfall. The snowfall. Would that be fair to say?
On quite a few of the streets, I'm not sure if they have time to get them all done, but in the residential, they try to go through with the grader through the middle and at least open that up. And then, of course, then they work around. And as of right now, we have 5 trucks hauling, and we have our own trucks. We have 3 contract trucks, and then with the snow blower and all. So it's going pretty fast, but it's costs more money because we don't have enough trucks.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about removal, but I am, I do question like, there's a need to send a plow down on some of these roads that they're very hard to maneuver at this point. And I contacted you earlier today in regards to one of them on Cambridge Crescent,
Yes.
which is in really bad shape. I mean, it's just nothing's been over there, so all that stuff is packed, and anybody going through is going to lose their teeth if they're not careful. So, all right, I just wanted to clear that up and confirm that policy. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Your Worship, Dr. Stanford, I guess I'd like to have Jesse come back to the next meeting and we can have this conversation with Jesse.
Oh, we plan on doing that.
Okay.
What I will ask, if you don't mind, is Councillor Blokeland indicated the concern that the Downtown Business Association has. Deputy Mayor Denise Peterson asked for some pathways on the Thomas Drive, access to the pathways on the Thomas Drive. And Councillor Rempel was talking in regards to the snow removal and the problems in regards to the timing for people to move their cars. I would ask if we could have a report back from administration in regards to these items for next council meeting, if that would be appropriate.
Yes, and that's pretty quick.
I realize that. So any information, even if it's only partial information in regards to any of these items, with it being the season that it is, we would appreciate anything to come back to council, please.
We'll have it ready, thanks.
Thank you. 8.2 SRAC Board Representation. And that is on page 97. What didn't
Your Worship, the Strathmore Regional Arts Collective are requesting representation from the town to sit as a voting member on the Strathmore Board of Directors. So they are a group of individuals who represent smaller art groups in Strathmore area, and they have come together to form a collective to build the arts community. Their goals are to establish culture, vision, and values as they pertain to the arts, and ultimately to secure an arts and culture center. Hope Bridges, who is part of the collective, was awarded a grant to conduct a feasibility study which strongly recommended the need for an arts culture, or sorry, an arts council, and this was echoed by federal, provincial, and municipal bodies. Since that time, SRAC has incorporated and formed a board of directors, and the group feels that it would be valuable for both SRAC and the community to have a council member sit on the board as a voting member. So we are asking for representation from a council member to sit on the board.
Are there any questions? Who had their hand up first? Councillor Fuel, please.
My question is through the chair to Linda, Deputy CAO. Does the SRAC group know what day of the month or what time their meetings would be? It's hard to volunteer unless we know when they're going to meet.
I believe it is every second Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Location?
Location is at the Leary Center in Hope Bridges office.
I'm sorry. Councillor Blockland was first.
No, go ahead, Councillor Pat, ask my question.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Your Worship, I would just comment. I was a member of that original board of directors for SRAC, and just actually regrettably resigned a few weeks ago. But we've already entered into a partnership. The town has entered into a partnership with SRAC on one event, and that was the Arts and Sounds in the Park, and it was very successful. This is a group that's dedicated, devoted, very professional in the way they're managing their affairs, and they just have a dream of bringing forth a cultural side to the town of Strathmore. So it's a great group, and I would encourage everybody to agree to partner up with them and have representation with them. I think it'll even make us closer.
Okay. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Peterson?
Your Worship, I have a deep and abiding interest in sitting on SRAC as a director, but and I know that our Deputy CAO also sits as a member on that board, and I have a conflict for the next 4 months where some Tuesdays, not all Tuesdays, that is providing that this council would bear to have me there, that I have university classes. But most times I would be available.
Are you putting your name forward?
I'm putting my name forward.
May I have a motion?
I would happily move that council appoint Deputy Mayor Denise Peterson to the SRAC Board of Directors for a 1-year term ending October of 2014.
Any comments? All in favor? We'll find something to cover.
Thank you.
8.3 Council Christmas Open House.
Yes, that's me, sorry. Your Worship, Council. Historically, Council has held a Christmas open house in December of every year. We invite the public, our MLA, our MP, Wheatland County Council, and numerous others to attend. It's held here in Council Chambers. We typically hold it from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on a Friday. in your agenda, we have December 6th listed, which is coming up pretty quick. That's next Friday. The reason that date has been suggested is because it is a flex Friday. So Councillor Fuel, and Councillor Peterson.
It is.
Actually,
Councillor Peterson works for Golden Hills, but is seconded to Siksika. So,
I'm sorry.
But
so
I will still be able to
possibly
hear you for part of
Councillor
it.
Peterson may be able to attend. That said, if council chooses that they want to have it a different date, by all means.
Any questions? Councillor Rimple?
To the chair, to Jen, do you know whether or not our MLA or MP are going to be available that day?
I do not know.
Thank you.
Councillor Boatland.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through the chair to Jen, are we inviting Siksika Tribal Council to this too?
Absolutely.
Wheatland County?
Yes.
Your Worship, I think it's a great idea, and I would certainly move that council hold the Strathmore Council open house on December 6, 2013, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Any discussion?
Yes, Your Worship. Just a comment. I would just like to thank Jen for considering Councillor Peterson and myself as far as our schedule, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, too.
All in favor? 8.4, traffic. RCMP traffic initiative. And this is an addition to the agenda, and you should have received your information on that.
I wonder, Your Worship, if someone from administration can read the letter sent by Staff Sergeant Riley in this regard first, and then I would like to make comment.
Dear Mayor and Council, background. Traffic enforcement has been an ongoing concern and priority within the town of Strathmore for the past 5 years. Efforts to increase traffic patrols and enforcement has not been as effective as it could be due to existing resources being required to attend to higher priority calls for service in the town of Strathmore. Strathmore Detachment is generally ranked as one of the busiest detachments in Southern Alberta District statistically in criminal code investigations. Although every effort has been made to conduct more general and targeted traffic patrols, the prioritization of calls for service prevents the ability to have the required focus and resources dedicated to a consistent traffic enforcement program in the town of Strathmore. Therefore, I would like to propose an alternative traffic plan. Current enhanced traffic programs. A number of communities utilize enhanced or extra policing programs to address specific or targeted concerns. A local example is the town of Chestermere, which utilizes a yearly budget of $125,000 to pay off-duty RCMP members to perform extra traffic enforcement, including the associated court costs. Although the primary focus is to address community concerns and identify traffic safety issues, the secondary consideration is that the program does have the potential to become self-funded through the specific traffic penalties collected as a result of the extra traffic enforcement. Pilot plan proposal. My recommendation is that the Town of Strathmore Council consider entering into a memorandum of understanding with the Strathmore RCMP detachment to provide similar enhanced traffic enforcement program within the community. The pilot program should last for a 6-month period to determine efficiency and effectiveness. The program should allow a budget of $4,000 per month. 6-month program would be $24,000 for 2 weekly 5-hour shifts and required supervisory hours to implement the pilot program. The Strathmore RCMP Detachment Commander would draft an appropriate MOU for review and approval by the Strathmore Town Council and District Divisional RCMP Senior Management. Once in place, a detachment supervisor would be assigned to plan, in consultation with the Town of Strathmore administration, implement and assess the enhanced traffic enforcement program. Quarterly reports would be made available to the Town Council and Town Administration. Sincerely, Staff Sergeant Kevin Riley.
Are there any questions? Councillor Sobel?
Actually, make some comment and then a motion, Your Worship. It's my belief that traffic enforcement is an integral part of a safe community, and a safe community is a goal I hope we all share. A number of realities have to be faced, however. It would appear obvious to me, at least, that because traffic enforcement is often associated with a potential physical danger, that this task should be left to the properly equipped RCMP. It's also obvious to me that when compared to break-and-enters, assaults, or drug enforcement investigations, traffic duties simply fall low on the priority list. The complaints about traffic issues continue, however. We regularly see speeding complaints in our school and playground zones or on Centennial Drive, Highway 1, George Freeman Trail, Brent Boulevard, Hillview Drive, Thomas Drive. We hear of red light violations on Highway 1 and stop sign violations on Cambridge Glen, Center Street, or 2nd Avenue. We see and are frustrated with the amount of distracted driving that exists in every area of our town, increasing the risk of collision and injury. Time for education has passed in regards to these and other traffic issues. We have at our disposal an opportunity to be proactive and to form a new partnership with the RCMP, one that would allow them to devote unfettered and dedicated hours to focus on our traffic concerns. Although this program has worked well in other areas and has proven to be financially viable, I would still recommend that we move forward on the enhanced traffic enforcement program for a limited period. Therefore, I move that the town of Strathmore enter a trial 6-month enhanced traffic enforcement agreement with the Strathmore RCMP at a cost not to exceed $24,000.
Motion has been made. Do we have any discussion? Councillor Rempel?
Go ahead, Councillor Pearson.
Because you have, through the chair to Councillor Sobel, because you have lots of experience in this area, in the memorandum of understanding, would this council have option to look at the plan, the implementation, and the assessment practices? Would that be something that we would know? Because I noticed they make a distinction between having a supervisor, a detachment supervisor for this plan, and so in some cases it could be assumed that it would be that person that would look at that planning, implementation, and assessment practice. It might not necessarily be a part of the memorandum of understanding.
Well, the plan will not be part of the MOU. The plan, the
Right.
MOU deals solely with the financial
Right.
arrangements. Our relationship with Staff Sergeant Riley is absolutely excellent, and he's his focus, his interest in this is as is ours. I believe this is not going to be a cash cow. This is going to be a program that's focused on traffic issues that are raised by us. I mean, we're the ones that are hiring them. He understands that it is us who's going to be having the say. We're receiving traffic complaints on a regular basis. So I think there's going to be a great amount of understanding and cooperation in that regard.
And I agree with that, Councillor Silva. I'm very much in favor of this. I think it's a really sound practice based in a safety perspective. My concern is in this assessment at the end of 6 months that this council have input into the assessment, or at least knowledge of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that's my understanding. Is it's going to be, it'll be Staff Sergeant Riley dealing with administration in regards to the assessment and how what results we did see, and I'm anxious to see what the results there are.
Because assessment will drive practice.
Exactly.
That's my concern.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Silva.
Do we have any further?
Thank you. Yes, just as for information purposes to the new mayor and new councillors, this proposal was brought to council earlier on this year, I believe it was. It got turned down then for obvious reasons, and now I was surprised that it was going to come back again. And I was really hoping that Sergeant Riley would be here tonight, because I do have a number of questions for him, and I don't know how I'm going to get my questions answered. The other alternative that the option that we do have is that our CEO was contacted by the Alberta Sheriff's Department, and they offered to do the same thing at no cost to the community. It would be revenue neutral. It would probably allow our SMP officers in town here to concentrate more on their regular duties that they're performing. Maybe even allow them to do, and I think we need to be a little bit more direct with our request for them to do some patrolling in town. I think that would go a long way. My other concern is that with them not having time to do patrols now, it means that they're very busy. I don't know how many are off on stress leave right now, but it seems to be there's always somebody off on stress leave. We have 16 officers. The per capita rate in Alberta, I believe, is 1,000 or 1,100 people per one officer. We have 16 officers. So we have more than enough officers to fill the demands that are set out in our contract, I believe. The other thing with them being as busy as they claim they are, and with members being on stress leave, if you get these same members now working overtime, that probably will create more stress and more time off from work. How are they going to deal with court days when they're on duty and they have to go to court because of something that they did on their overtime hours? So that results in time off of work where they could be on the street. How do they get paid? Do we pay them? Do they get paid their regular wages plus we pay them time and a half to be in court? Do they get double pay? And there are other questions, and I would really what I would suggest is that we table this motion for 2 weeks or until Sergeant Raleigh can be in attendance at a meeting, and we can follow through with our due diligence with the sheriffs to find out when they're available and how many hours per week they would be willing to work out here. It always comes down to it's not a cash cow, but it is, because it has to be revenue neutral. It's supposed to be revenue neutral, so they are obligated to write a certain number of tickets in order to make it revenue neutral. Whereas with the sheriffs, they can do it with less pressure and probably be just as effective, and they can pick their areas where they want, and we don't have to monitor them.
Are you making a motion to table this?
I am, sir.
All in
Point of
favor?
order, Your Worship,
Okay.
you can't table
No?
that matter.
Why can't you table?
You can't table. We're not allowed to table anything.
Well, we can hold it over until the next meeting.
We can't table it.
Okay.
Defer it.
Can we table it?
I believe we can.
It would be postponed, Your Worship.
Postpone? Okay.
Postpone until,
Do we do that?
which is the same thing, just different terminology.
Do we do the postponement by a motion?
To a certain date, right? And that would be until the next public meeting.
And the wisdom of defer.
Councillor Fuel.
Your Worship, I just have one question, I guess possibly to Councillor Rempel. If we, in order to make this decision as far as deferring the motion, Do we know whether we will, as a municipality, have close control or direction over the sheriffs and where they are and where they'll be doing their patrols or
My understanding,
monitoring?
my understanding is we do not have that information in regards to the sheriffs. My understanding also, and we're waiting for some additional information from the CAO, is that we actually go through the RCMP to have the sheriffs attend our town. These are the kinds of questions that we need to address. And further to Councillor Rempel, he said he has a number of questions that he would like to ask of the staff sergeant. What I would request, Councillor Rempel, if we do postpone this, that you have your questions prepared ahead of time so that we know. Okay, good, thank you. So that we know what they are and we know where we're going in regards to this. So, Councillor Bluffland.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would at this time like to throw my half a page of stuff in here for discussion and debates. I got a little different angle. I fully agree with Councillor Sobel here with this program. I don't have a problem with that. I agree highway safety is of the utmost importance. So is other areas in town, including school zones and whatever else. Reading Staff Sergeant Kevin Riley's second letter, I guess. I was working off the first one the other night, but I'm concerned about the budget amounts of $4,000 a month for a total of 2 weekly 5-hour shifts, if I read that right. That approximates approximately 40 hours per month. I do realize the ticket revenue these people generate will offset the overtime cost. I would like to look at a different option though, and I'll quit talking about the sheriff since Councillor John took care of that. I do understand possibly a job competition will be underway for a senior peace officer to complement our own troops here, plus an additional peace officer to be hired, which would give us 3. I believe we can do a better job this way, including the Trans-Canada Highway, town areas, school zones, etc., and utilize more than 40 hours a month. With the 3 peace officers we would have, we could well be using 40 hours a week, using our own people and resources. Just a point I wanted to bring up for discussion. I'm not saying I don't agree with Councillor Sobel's RCMP. This is just a different angle I was looking at.
Councillor Rempel, do we have your motion on the floor to Councillor Sobel?
Well, just in response to a couple of these things, first of all, clearly I disagree with about 95% of what Councillor Rempel said. In regards to the sheriffs, we have very little control. I'm telling you from experience that you have very little control over what the sheriffs do, and that's been evidenced by by their traffic enforcement on Highway 1, which has consistently been on the west side of town with the vehicles exiting the highway, and they do it there because it's a safe location, but it's not doing very much for the safety of our citizens. It's catching people as they leave. I'm not knocking them for doing that. I understand why they're there, but my focus is not on revenue on this. My focus is on trying to get some traffic enforcement in our town. And I'll tell you what, every day that we postpone this and play around with this, and all the questions Staff Sergeant Riley can answer, it's not going to change the fact that we are short of traffic enforcement in this town. And that's all this program is. It's to add traffic enforcement on a limited 6-month basis. If it's not going to cost us anything, if it's revenue neutral, which it has been in every other community that it's done, and it has reduced the collisions and traffic issues in other locations, then I'm not sure why we're so against this. I would also note, although we have 16 members, a similar sized town just east of us, the city of Brooks actually has 23 municipal members, and their there you have a location where their criminal code work and violations are reducing incredibly because they have the extra manpower. So it's unless you've been in the game, it's hard to say that 16 is enough. It all depends on what you want for a police force and what level of service you want. The only other comment I would make in regards to Councillor Blockland is regarding the peace officers. These people are not armed, and I am really concerned about unarmed peace officers doing traffic stops, especially on Highway 1. This is not a game. This is serious stuff, and some of these people that they're stopping have got guns. So I would hope that we'd look at this safety issue of this and leave this to the people that have the right equipment to be doing these stops. I will be voting against the proposal to postpone this because I want to get on with this.
Okay. Councillor Rempel, you have a motion on the floor to postpone?
I do, Your Worship.
To what period of time, please?
Till the next meeting, which would be the first meeting in December, which is December 6th?
Okay.
No, December 4th. 6th is Friday.
We have Councillor Fuel?
Sorry, Your Worship, I just have a question. In trying to decide a deferral date, how do we know that Sergeant Riley, Staff Sergeant Riley, is able to appear before us and address some of these questions that might be asked?
We don't. Councillor Rempel?
We can always postpone it again, because I don't know if our administration are going to have been able to work out all the details with the Sheriff's Department by then.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor to Council. Deputy Mayor Peterson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say that I would vote against the motion to defer because I believe that $24,000 as per the original motion, maximum, to take a look at what is very certainly to be a cost-neutral program that will be well administered and have proffered council an opportunity to take an in-depth look at something that could be extremely valuable to not just our citizens but to people passing through our community. For that reason, I will vote against the motion to defer.
We have a motion on the floor. Oh, not anymore. Councillor Rempel.
Your Worship, I believe we owe it to our constituents, to our taxpayers, that we do follow through with the due diligence on this. We can't just go out and award something like this to a group of local people to the RCP. Or, we have the Sheriff's Department that we need to deal with as well. To consider. They are a provincial police force, and they do carry sidearms. They're perfectly capable of handling this as well. I'm not against the RCMP doing it. What I'm against is trying to get this ramrodded through in one evening here with very short notice, and when there are alternatives to this, and we should be able to have the option of pursuing that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rempel. I'm going to close debate on this, Councillor Blockland, because Councillor Rempel has spoke on it twice.
I spoke once.
But he made the motion. He made the motion, and I apologize, Councillor Blockland. In regards to this, I'll make a comment. This is an MOU. The MOU will have to come back to council for approval. Am I correct?
Yes.
Alrighty. So nothing will be signed, sealed, and delivered until it's brought back to council. So in the meantime, additional information can come through in regards to the sheriff. Am I correct? And may we have the municipal clerk?
I'm sorry. Your Worship, administration was just informed that Staff Sergeant Riley will be away until the 10th, so it may be prudent, I guess, to change the motion for postponement till the December 18th meeting.
That's fine. have a problem with that.
The motion has been amended to postpone until December the 18th. Motion is on the floor to postpone. Further discussion, or what is the motion now?
Motion is to amend.
You just read it.
Yeah. The motion is to postpone it until December the 18th to,
For the purpose of gathering more information.
okay. There's the motion on the floor. All in favor of postponing? 3 in favor of postponing, all in favor, or all those not in favor of postponing? Motion is defeated. So it is not postponed. So now we can go back to the original initiative in regards to undertaking an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with the RCMP for a 6-month trial program for enhanced traffic enforcement. Do we have any questions in regards to it? Councillor Walz.
Your Worship, to Dr. Stanford, just confirming this is going to come back to us in an MOU?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blokeman.
Your Worship, through the CEO there, when it comes back to us as an MOU, then we have a look at it.
It'll come back, we'll have it ready for next week. I think there's other comments.
Yeah, I don't want to, I don't want to pull the wool over anybody's eyes here. I'm going to reread my motion, because the motion is to enter into the agreement. So I move that the town of Strathmore enter into a trial 6-month enhanced traffic enforcement agreement with the Strathmore RCMP at a cost not to exceed $24,000. And I guess I should add that the CAO and mayor be able to sign that agreement.
Okay, the way it's worded then, that would work.
So that doesn't give us any more, through the chair, for me. It doesn't give us any more opportunity for debate.
Councillor Sobel, would you entertain amending your motion to have the MOU come back to council for approval?
For the same reason I didn't vote to adjourn this. I don't see I absolutely see no value at furthering discussions on this. I wish it did. Once again, all the points that were brought up by Councillor Rempel, I don't see how that affects this agreement or the intent of this motion. We're talking apples and oranges as far as I'm concerned. I'm interested in agreement. I want this thing to get started. It'll be probably 6 to 8 weeks before all the paperwork is done as is. I don't want to wait any longer, Your Worship. I'll have my motion stand as is.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Discussion, please.
I'll just say it again. We need to do our due diligence. I don't think it's fair to the people of this community if we have that other option. We need to find out what it is. We know it's going to be revenue neutral if the Alberta Sheriffs do it. We don't know if it's going to be revenue neutral if the RCMP do it.
Councillor Bluffland.
Your Worship, we have my other option also, and could I ask administration a question?
By all means, please.
To the CAO, are we indeed setting up a job competition for a senior peace officer?
Yes, council agreed the last council meeting. Well, let me correct myself. At our budget discussions, we talked about hiring a senior peace officer, and then of course we're going to replace Chris, the fellow who went to Red Deer. So that is in the works, but until the budget comes to council next month, it's not finalized. We can advertise after that, assuming council approve it.
So the chances are with a peace officer doing his or her job inside the town of Strathmore town limits, the chances of them stopping somebody and somebody having a weapon in the vehicle could be just the same as on the highway.
I'm just giving my opinion. I think on the highway, they're more apt, it's more dangerous.
Thank you.
Further discussion? The The motion's on the floor to enter into an MOU with the RCMP for enhanced policing. All in favor?
We have a recorded vote on this, please?
Recorded vote, please. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? Thank you. 8.5. The 2015 55 plus games.
Your Worship, first of all, I apologize to Council for bringing that in. That is a late item that I asked to be brought in today, and it is considered, in my opinion anyway, an emergency situation. It came as a result of a board meeting that I was at the night before last with the 55 plus games committee. It was evident from discussing at that meeting that funds from the games are not going to be received for 3 to 4 months, and the committee finds itself in a situation where it has no funds, basically, because the funds are all supplied from the administration of the games. So I've been asked to seek some interim financial funding from the town for the games committee in the amount of $10,000 with the idea of having these funds returned once the money comes in. It has to do with some training costs and some insurance costs that the committee has to look at prior to March or April.
Deputy Mayor Peterson?
Through the chair to Councillor Sobel, would they be prepared to give us a budget
Oh, certainly.
before we make any motion with that regard? So we could ask them to prepare a budget
You betcha.
for consideration with the understanding in that process that they would be remitting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Peel?
Through the chair to admin, I guess. I'm just curious as to where the 10,000 would come from. I'm not saying I'm against it. I just want to know where we would get this advance from.
We take the 10,000 out of financial stabilization reserve. I had the opportunity to talk to Tracy today about it, and she was very much in favor and said they need it and they need to get on with it.
That's exciting.
Further questions?
So without an actual budget, and once again I apologize because this was very, very quickly done. Am I getting the understanding that council would prefer to see a budget from the committee prior to considering this?
I'll put that in form of a motion, Your Worship,
Okay, please.
that Strathmore Town Council request from the Summer Games 2015 coordinating group a budget proposal for the amount that they're requesting in support from the town and the process through which that monies will be repaid. And
55 plus games committee.
yes, the 55 plus games, thank you. And upon receiving that, council will be able to make a decision.
Councillor Wall?
Your Worship, to Councillor Sobel, is this just an interim grant? Is that all they need, just to get things rolling?
Yes, it is, Councillor Walls.
Okay.
Further questions? Councillor Sobel, then I will ask a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. Where does the funding for the 55 games, where do they get the money from? And basically what I'm looking for is the security that we are going to be repaid the $10,000.
I'll put up my house.
So generous.
Yeah, I know. I don't have that answer. And once again, I had to call into Tracy and never got a call back, and I was looking for more information all day today. I wasn't able to get anything, but they have a grant from the, go ahead, please.
They'll be getting a major grant, according to Tracy, probably March or April, and they can pay it back at that time.
Where does the grant come from? Provincial government?
Yes.
Okay. They're reasonably solvent.
Yeah, this is a program financed by the provincial government.
The other question that I have is, do they need the 10,000 all at once, or do they need it in maybe the budget will answer that question.
You know, I'm thinking they've got a bunch of things that they want to get going, and I you know, it's I know the insurance itself is $5,000, so it's, and they have a training, you know, they one of the issues, and this is why it's gone so fast, is because they're trying to get a training day set up, and the cost for that is $500, and they can't reserve it because they don't have any funds. So I'll be honest with you, putting this off is going to be very difficult for them. I don't know. They won't be able to reserve the training, and the insurance is very important for them for personal liability as well.
When do you feel we can get a budget?
Well, I mean, tomorrow, but that's not going to help us.
Your Worship, I'm prepared to waive the budget requirement. The town department, it's going to be going, sounds like majority of it to advancement of the organization. I'm prepared this time, provided the council sort puts his house up, we're good to go.
Don't overstate that. Deputy Mayor Peterson, please.
Your Worship, I believe that town administration has prepared a document now for this kind of grant anyway, and one of the requirements of that is due diligence around a budget. Am I correct in that? That any time we advance money to a group?
No, there's no policy in place yet.
No policy right now.
But I think if it can be done tomorrow, and we have a meeting next week. Yeah. I don't think a week is too long to wait.
It is what it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor for the 55 plus games committee to give us a budget, and at that point, after we receive that, then we will review this application for the $10,000 at our next
December 4th.
Council meeting, which is on December the 4th. Any other comments in regards to that? All in favor? Carries. Administration. Do we have anything from administration?
We have one item later.
Okay. Do we have committee and departmental reports?
Not today.
I do.
Departmental reports are usually the first meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hold departmental committee reports for the December 4th meeting, because I have a report, but not with me.
Okay.
Questions between, was there something you wanted to
It was with regards to committee reports, but I think a week would be okay.
Okay.
I'm hoping.
Okay.
I might be fired from committees come next week.
Alrighty, questions between councillors and or to administration?
I have a question.
Councillor Blokland, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really don't have a question. I just have a brief summation of this past summer campaign. Several group of people were involved with that we called Help Feed High River. Since the previous council did approve a controversial $1,000 donation to this worthy cause, I thought I'd bring it to everybody's attention what actually happened there. It was in one of the local papers here last week, but the total amount of donations that came in came up to $11,292.35. A call for mattresses came out of High River, so $2,500 was expended on mattresses. The Beef on a Bun mission that we did down there for, was it 1 or 2 days? Doesn't matter. That was the original intent of this whole thing to start with. We cooked up 700 pounds of roast beef between a few of us catering companies, and we spent approximately $3,000 on that part of the campaign. Just in the last couple of weeks, I have with me that I got to get to High River a certified check in the amount of $5,798.19, which is going directly to the High River Food Bank. I expressed all my thank yous in the paper. Thank you to Corrine and her group of people. Thank you to all the donators. Thank you to Strathmore and Wheatland County. As usual, it was a job well done.
Well done. Thank you. Any other? Deputy Mayor Pearson?
Your Worship, I just wanted to ask administration about the process. There's been lots of discussion in community about setting up a senior advisory council. And I'm wondering if at some point we can have a discussion about the process through which that could go. And I just wanted to ask administration for direction of that in the future. And I have a second item. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and we'll prepare something for a future council meeting.
Thank you. The seniors groups that I've talked to so far are looking for action in the new year. So it's a ways off. And my second thing, in our package, we have a note from Habitat for Humanity and an offering to come and discuss affordable housing. I think it would be something worthwhile, but I'd look to administration for the advisability of that to speak to a future council meeting if they have not already done so.
They came and gave a presentation.
Oh, they did?
We discussed in detail, and because of the conditions they put on, the council decided not to do it.
Oh, thank you.
But we're all supportive of affordable housing.
Sure.
Anything further? No? Any council invitations? No? There's no in camera?
Yes, there is.
Is there?
Worship, I move to go in. Worship, I'd move to go in camera.
All righty. We will adjourn and go in camera.